Hello and welcome to In Conversation with the Doctoral College. I'm Deborah Curitan and I'm the Research Development Manager at the University of Wolverhampton.
And I'm Dr. Ben Hannigan. I'm Director of the Doctoral College.
Today's vlog, we're going to talk about APR. For students in FEW in particular, where there's a lot of ProfDoc students, it's APR season. So all the ProfDocs go through APR together. So we're going to talk about APR feedback and how to deal with that, what it means, what happens after APR, to kind of take some of the worry about the whole process.
So this is the annual progress review. This is the annual assessment of your professional doctorate, your PhD, where you prepare a document that's given to the assessors, you do a presentation, they look at a block of your work, and then there is feedback to you further to this, and it happens every year.
Yeah. So every university has an annual progress review process. The reason we have an annual progress review process is that it's part of the quality standards, the quality assurance, and in order to have degree awarding powers, we need to align ourselves with these processes. So every university will have an annual progress review. So it's got a couple of functions. One is that it often has a registry function because the students coming to the end of their year, and so in order for their record to be ticked over to the next year, registry need to know that they've successfully completed. But also it has an academic aspect to it as well, in that it looks at the quality of your work, it looks at the quantity of your work. It's an opportunity to get feedback from somebody other than your supervisory team. It's the opportunity to talk to other people about your research and get feedback, and it's that feedback that we're going to deal with today.
But I think for supervisors it's particularly useful because you have sometimes, doubts or questions, or is the student's research what it could be? Have I given them, the correct directive in this? I mean, I'm very excited about what they've achieved. Am I right to be that excited? So when you have feedback, it's useful for the supervisor because it confirms suspicions or confirms that they're doing the right thing or confirms that the work really is that good. And that's also useful and reassuring for a supervisor. But today we're talking about the feedback going to the student, the researcher, and what the researcher does with that feedback and how useful it is for them. So there's a registry function. They pass, they can re-register, they're in the next year of their PhD. But there's an academic function, which kind of, I suppose, for me, in a way, part of it is that it's a bit of a health check.
So Wolverhampton students can pass with minor mods, or we have a process called Proceed with Caution. And Proceed with Caution aims to be a developmental opportunity. So if you're not quite up to speed, there's some worries, you haven't quite done enough work. You and your supervisors and the faculty postgraduate research tutor will work together to develop an action plan to help bring you up to speed.
So in my health check scenario, you've passed means everything's fine, off you go, we'll see you in a year's time. Proceed with Caution can be something like, well, let's have you back in a few weeks to check out, whether your foot is better or something like this. So it's kind of saying things are okay, but we actually need a further reassurance, and maybe we need to see you again just to make sure things are okay. And I think that often the researcher thinks of this as some sort of mini exam that they have to pass or not, and that's an inaccurate perception, because it's more formative, it's more getting you to the point where they can tell you things are good. So it shouldn't really be a black and white pass-fail. It should be more an engagement with some other experts that will lift the quality of your work.
So the minor modifications, that's often a few ideas that maybe sparked through the conversation between you and the assessors. some ideas if perhaps the research questions aren't clear, how the research questions might be tweaked, or some additional reading that might be aligned to the area that you're working in that you weren't aware of. And that's usually monitored by the supervisory team, so they're a recommendation. And you and your supervisor sit down and have a bit of a chat about how, you go away, do that reading, how appropriate is it? Is it something that you're going to add into your work, or is it something that you need to provide a justification for why you haven't added it into your work?
So you have the feedback.
Yes.
Your supervisor's given it, and then you will talk to your supervisor and you'll go through the feedback together.
Students often say to me, I get emails from students who say, okay, I went through APR and I've heard nothing. So I think it might be useful just to talk about that process after APR. So obviously when you do an APR, on as a an anniversary of the registration. So what happens is that those APRs need to go to a faculty research committee at Wolverhampton and to be signed off. So you won't hear anything about your APR until your paperwork has gone through that committee. So that might be a couple of months. But
yeah, so it may take, if you and I were the assessors of an APR, we would have to find a time to talk to the student within the limits set. So we'd talk to the student, they would have given us some work. We might want to look again at the work after we've talked to the student. Then we'd have to do a form that we both agree with, and that can take a bit of time, maybe a bit of back and forth. When that's completed and signed, then it goes to the research student board. They have to verify our decision, and at that point it's given to the supervisor, and then the supervisor has to arrange to meet with the researcher to give him or her the feedback. So my gosh, that can really take a while, can't it?
It can. But I would imagine that if there was any issues in terms of, the proceed with caution process, that would have been dealt with a lot quicker. The chairs of the student board or the faculty research committees have the opportunity to use a chair's action to speed those processes up. But in between hearing about your APR, you should be, in between your APR and hearing about your APR, you should be carrying on working, because it is actually just one of the milestones. You don't stop. You keep working and assume all is well unless anybody tells you different.
So it's a health check, but it's a milestone as well. And I think those two things are important. So you have that meeting with your supervisor. They have the feedback for you. I think, a useful APR assessment might do the things you talked about. So it may say, have you considered this author, these articles? So at that point you have, a job of work to do. It may be that elements of, you say your research questions may be understood by you, may be understood by your supervisor, but some further clarity may need to be done. It may be they have issues with the presentation of data, all kinds of things can occur. So I think for me, with APR feedback, as a supervisor, I'd want to say to the research student, could you do a list, maybe an Excel spreadsheet, action list, what are you going to do with the feedback, where are you going to do it, when are you going to do it by, and then that way we've really maximised on this useful response that we've got. And that's actually, therefore, maybe the most thorough thing to do with APR feedback is to actually build it into your research program going forward. And especially if they're saying, maybe you need training on statistical analysis, then go, right, when's the next Doctoral College skills session I can sign up to achieve that?
I think APR is a really useful exercise because as a supervisory team and as a student, we're quite close to the research. Sometimes we can't see the wood for the trees, and that kind of clear pair of eyes may see something that we don't see, or may see something extra that we aren't aware of that can enhance the piece of research. So I know students are often scared of the APR process, nervous about what it means, nervous about, am I going to get kicked off the doctorate at this point? No, you're not going to get kicked off the doctorate at this point if you've been doing your work, if you've been making progress, if you've been attending supervisory meetings, if you're hitting the goals and the targets that are set for APR. The worst possible case scenario is that you're going to get some feedback. But if you're not hitting the targets, if you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, that's when really, I suppose, APR should be worried.
And I think we need to pick this up, because if we weren't implementing a thorough system, or in the experience of PhD researchers of 15, 20 years ago, when none of this seemed to be really going on, you would throw the poor PhD research into a viva. They could be eaten alive.
Yeah.
And they would quite rightly come back to us and say, why didn't you give me a health check? Why didn't you warn me this didn't make sense? Why were you not preparing me for... So the benefit is really for the PhD researcher, not for... So, okay, so we have the health check, we have the milestone, but further to what you said, I think we have a bonus, which is a verification of the quality of the work. Because if you're in full-time, you're in your second year, you're in your third year, you do the annual progress review, you've submitted a very substantial body of work, which may be half, maybe more than half of the whole PhD, and you get a thumbs up. You may have one or two small things to do, but essentially you get a thumbs up. Then on the other side of that APR, with the feedback, you've been told by independent assessors that your, 3/4 of the thesis is good, it's passable, it's fine. And then at that point, I think the light at the end of the tunnel is apparent, because you can see the way ahead, the way to submission, the way to completion.
Yeah.
And what an empowering thing that can be.
Take some of the worry out.
Absolutely.
Okay, so your tip for top tip for dealing with your APR feedback?
I would say be methodical, do an action list, do an Excel spreadsheet, work out what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, when you're going to do it by. So let it be a program of work for you.
And my top tip is don't be scared of it. See it as a developmental opportunity, and see it as a way of being able to expand on the expertise of your team, and for it to be the opportunity to defend your work and practice that defence ready for Viva.
Absolutely.
Okay, so thank you for listening. These videos are released every Friday, so if you want to hear more from us, do subscribe and follow us, and thank you for listening. Bye.
Bye.